Hello, everyone, and welcome to this audio podcast. This audio podcast is part of a Peritubular scope series. This audio podcast, as part of a sort of a research and educational sort of audio podcast series. This audio podcast is part of a Spectre compass. This audio podcast, as part of a Storm Robotics production. This audio podcast, as part of a Brigadier Orbit. In this audio podcast, a little bit around the looking into the databases sort of utilized for this works as part of peer reviewed and published works, and also the strategy around around ident- around identifying literature according to terminologies, and according to a grouping of terminologies, and according to databases utilized. So the first part, one of the first aspects around this works was to implement a basic PubMed search, which implemented sort of the grouping of grouping of terminologies, and where the grouping of terminologies consisted of six. Sorry, there were initially six basic searches or literature review literature works sort of as part of this as part of a basic PubMed search, wherein basic search included, for example, terminologies. Or basic search one, for example, included terminologies included coping, coping and nursing based works, and also sort of well-being, and basic search 2 included terminologies coping, quality of life and well-being. Basic search 3 included coping, adapting, accepting. Basic search 4 included terminologies coping, adapting, and well-being. Basic search 5 including coping, psychoneuroimmunology, and basic search 6 included coping, psychoneuroimmunology, and stress. And then link to each of the sort of terminologies, or basic searches or grouping, and the grouping of terminologies. The number the database the data There was databases were utilized, wherein grouping of terminologies were grouping of terminologies were put into databases PubMed Central, and Medline. So, for example, in the basic search one, where terminologies around coping, well-being, and nursing, that revealed 1,000 initially revealed 1,487 peer-reviewed works between 1966 and 2000 1966 and 2011. In basic two around basic search 2 utilizing the grouping of terminologies that consisted of well-being, quality of life, and well-being, and well-being a quality of life and well-being, revealed two peer-reviewed works, between utilizing PubMed Central, and Medline search, and where the two papers of peer review works was between 1998 and 2006. In basic search 3, and basic search 3, the peer-reviewed works, the grouping of terminologies included coping, adapting, and accepting, and that revealed PubMed Central and Medline Search Medline Search databases revealed 7 peer-reviewed papers between 1991 and 2011. And then basic search 4 utilized terminologies, a grouping of terminologies, coping, coping, adapting, and well-being, and well-being, and the term the databases PubMed Central, and Medline Search revealed 4 peer-reviewed papers between 2003 and 2011. Basic Search 5, with a grouping of terminologies including coping, psychoneuroimmunology. The databases PubMed Central, and Medline Search revealed 128 papers, peer-reviewed works between 1985 and 2010. In the grouping of terminologies and basic search 6, the terminologies coping, psychoneuroimmunology, and stress, stress the and stress the 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 databases PubMed Central, and Medline Search revealed 110 peer-reviewed works, 110 peer-reviewed papers or works between 1985 and 2010. The decisions then following PubMed Central and Medline searching. So inciting sort of the sort of renowned sort of famous works by Hanselli in around Hanselli and relating sort of coping and stress by uh, by by then typing this researcher Hanselli's works a name in sort of manually in manually. The article was not picked up not picked up was not picked up in the was not picked up in the searches, and it had been decided to search a range of databases at the same time, using the EBSCO host engine, over a 74-year duration between 1937, for example, 1937 up to 2011. And this was carried through because PubMed as a database, as a search engine, did not provide results dating back this far during a basic search, and it was known that Hanselli was one of the sort of forefathers of in around coping and stress research. And so findings following PubMed Central and Medline analysis, in and so in referring to in this peer review works from 2012, referring to table to one of the main tables, the first table, for example, the second table, and the grouping of terminologies through PubMed Central, and Medline search engines. This then prompted a total of 1,738 abstracts or papers papers abstracts and full papers were also analyzed for contents surrounding coping definition. And although the basic reveal a basic a ba- although the basic revealed a basic works revealed a basic sort of output revealed sort of varying articles regarding coping. Many of the papers were irrelevant and surrounded sort of the more adult and older patient works. And so and so as six basic searches utilizing utilizing PubMed Central, and Medline did not reveal many papers associated with a specific specific group of people or population. No advanced or refined search followed. Of the 1,738 38 abstracts and papers, approximately identified approximately 70 papers were then cross-examined utilizing the critical appraisal skill program. Of the 70 peer-reviewed works identified, it became apparent that coping literature predominantly consisted of literature reviews, seminal papers, and discussions which tended to cite the same research-based works. So, in this peer-reviewed works from 2012, I note that there is an overview that looks at and that outlines terminologies that were assessed utilizing several databases through EBSCO host to identify papers or peer-reviewed works relative to this narrative review or narrative review works. So EBSCO host databases, the databases accessed using EBSCO host included, for example, Signal Plus with full text review from looking at literature, looking to identify literature between 1937 to 2011. Psychology and Behavioral Sciences collection between 1937 to 2011. Info between 1937 to 2011. Health Source, Nursing and Academic edition from looking to identify literature between 1937 to 2011. International Bibliography of the Social Sciences looking to identify literature between 1937 and 2011. SOC Index with full text looking to identify literature again between 1937 and 2011, and Library Information Science and Technology abstracts and looking to identify literature between 1937 and 2011, and then uh, and also Medline, where Medline has a link within EBSCO host databases as well. So looking to identify literature between 1937 and 2011. Literature searching also included the following aspects: smart text searching. Smart text searching option was utilized, replacing the and or methodology. It also allowed as much text to be entered for a search, and this includes phrases, a sentence, a paragraph, or even whole pages. And in addition, options were selected for full text, peer-reviewed journals, periodicals, abstracts available, looking at the English language or literature around the English language, and being human beings. So decisions following EBSCO host searching, a total of 681 abstracts or papers were identified through the EBSCO host databases. After the removal of duplicates, 422 abstracts were then subjected to inclusion and exclusion criteria. Coping was the main focus of a paper, and thus having a sort of an interaction in healthcare, in around healthcare and well-being. So the findings following the EBSCO host analysis. So of the 422 abstracts, approximately 70 papers were cross-examined using the critical appraisal skills program. Of the 70 papers, identifying analysis was much like that following the PubMed Central and Medline analysis. It was transparent that coping publications mainly comprised of literature papers, seminal papers, and discussions, and there was citation overlap, i.e., papers that were identified in PubMed search were also apparent in the EBSCO host search. This review identified four four main themes surrounding the coping concept. Number one, coping as a process. Number two, coping styles. Number three, coping measurement. And number four, coping theories and models. That draws this audio podcast to a close. This audio podcast as part of a peritubular scope series. This audio podcast as part of a sort of an education and sort of research audio podcast series. An audio podcast as part of the Spectre compass. This audio podcast as part of a Brigadier orbit, and this audio podcast as part of a Storm Robotics production.